Welcome to my pre-algebra class. We're on chapter 9, sections 7 and 8. We're going to be solving two other types of percent word problems. 9-7 deals with finding the percent one number is of another. And again, we're going to use an equation to do that. So what percent translates to X percent of is the times sign, 75 is the equal sign 21. So in this problem here, we would divide both sides by 75. And using our calculator, 21 divided by 75 gives me the decimal 0.28. So I have X percent equals 0.28. And that's the percent equals that decimal. So to get to the percent, I move it 2 over to the right. So X is 28%. Number 2, what percent? X percent of 16 is 22. So divide both sides by 16 to solve for X percent. So 22 divided by 16 is 1.375. So X percent equals 1.375. So to get to the percent, change the decimal to a percent, I move it 2 to the right, so it's 137.5 or 137.5%. And the last problem, 625, is the equal sign, what percent, X percent of times 500. To solve for the percent, I have to divide both sides by 500. And 625 divided by 500 is 1.25. So 1.25 equals X percent. Change it to a percent, move it 2 to the right, it's 125%. And the third type of word problem is finding the number when I know a percent of it. Again, we're going to use an equation. 60%, 0.6 of what number, X, is equals 126. So I divide both sides by 0.6. So 126 divided by 0.6 is 210. So X equals 210. 60% of 210 is 126. And number 2, 120 is the equal sign. 66 2/3%. I cannot use the decimal for it. It's 0.6 repeating, but I do know the fraction is 2/3. Of what number times X? In this case, I'm going to use the reciprocal, which you learned a while ago. We're going to multiply both sides by 3/2. The 2/3 of the 3/2 cancel out. 2 goes into 2 once, and into 120 60 times. So 180 is the answer. 120 is 66 2/3, or 2/3 of 180. Using this method of using an equation to solve word problems with percents, we're going to do two assignments, or two different pages, page 413, 1 to 16, and 416, 1 to 16. So head your paper, skip a line, put the title down, and turn to page 413. Problem number 2, it says what percent, so X percent, of times 200 is 68, equals 68. Divide both sides by 200. So we take 68 and divide it by 200. and we get 0.34. So x percent equals 0.34. So the percent is 34%, moving it 2 to the right. Problem number 4, what percent, x percent, of 32 times 32 is equals 8. Divide both sides by 32. And you can see this is 1/4. We know we're going to get the decimal 0.25. So the percent is 25%. So if you recognize your fractions and your decimals, use that so you don't have to use a calculator. Problem number 6, 3.5 is equals what percent, x percent of times 50. So we're going to divide both sides by 50. And 3.5 divided by 50 is 0.07. So the percent would be, move it 2 to the right, 7%. Problem number 8, what percent, x percent of times 66 is the equal sign 44. Divide both sides by 66, and we get x percent equals 2/3, and if you remember the decimal for that is 0.6 repeating. So x equals 66 2/3%. Don't leave your repeating decimal in the percent. Number 10, 12 is equals what percent, x percent, of 2,400 times 2,400. So we're going to divide both sides by 2,400. And 12 divided by 2,400 equals 0.005. Equals x percent, so x, change it to a percent, would be 0.5%. Problem number 12, what percent, x percent of times 48 is the equal sign 2.4. Solving for x percent, we want to divide both sides by 48. So 2.4 divided by 48 is 0.05. So x percent equals 0.05, and we want to change that to its percent so that move it 2 to the right. That is 5%. Problem number 14, we're going to set up a standard percent equation and translate the word problem. So I have blank percent of the whole equals the part. This is a standard equation for any percent word problem. So the sale price of the luggage Carolyn bought was $160. That's the whole amount. The sales tax she paid was $8.80. That's the part. What was the sales tax rate? What percent was the sales tax? So we're looking for the percent. We're going to divide both sides by, I'm going to erase this whole part, by 160 so we can see what the sales tax rate is. So 8.8 divided by 160, and we get 0.55. So x percent equals 0.55. So the percent must be, move it 2 to the right, 55%. That's a little large percent there. Let's see what I think I forgot to put 8.8 in here. Let's try that again. So clear this, and it's 8.8 divided by 160. And I get 0.055. No one's going to pay 55% sales tax. 0.055, which is 5.5%, which makes more sense. And the last problem on this page, 16, we're going to say blank percent of the whole equals the part. So 16, a local charity wishes to raise $500,000. At the end of the fund drive, $600,000 was raised. What percent of its goal did the charity reach? Well, they wanted to raise $500,000. That's the whole amount they wanted. They actually went over the whole amount. The part that they got was $600,000. So we're looking for what percent. So it should be over 100%. So we're going to divide both sides by 500,000. And of course we can drop matching zeros. So it's going to be 6 divided by 5. And we get 1.2. So X percent equals 1.2. So X is 120%. Moving the decimal 2 to the right. And then page 416 is the last type of percent word problem. And we're on number 2. And again, translating the English into a math problem, 30 equals 60%, 0.6 of what number? X stands for what number? So we're going to divide both sides by 0.6 to solve for X. And we take 30 and divide it by 0.6 and we get 50. So 50 is the original amount. Problem number 4, 40%, 0.4 of what number? X equals 114. Divide both sides by 0.4. So we get 114 divided by 0.4. And the whole amount was 285. Problem number 6, 3%, change it to a decimal, be 0.03 to the left, of what number? X equals 54. So we're going to divide both sides by 0.03. So 54 divided by 0.03 is 1,800. So 3% of 1,800 is going to be 54. Number 8, 216 equals 90%, 0.9 of what number? So we'll use X for what number? Divide both sides by 0.9 to solve for X, to find the whole amount. 216 divided by 0.9 is 240. So 240, if I take 90% of that, I'll get the 216. Problem number 10, 250%, move it to the left, that's 2.5 of what number? X equals 50. So we divide both sides by 2.5. $50 divided by 2.5 is 20. So X is 20. 250%, that's 2.5 times 20, will come out 50. That's correct. And number 12, 37.5% of what number is 72? 37.5% is 37.5% of what number? X equals 72. So if I change 37.5% to a decimal, I slide it 2 to the left. So it's 0.375x equals 72. Divide both sides by 0.375. And 72 divided by 0.375 is 192. So X is 192. Problem number 14, set up the equation format for a percent word problem. And we'll fill in the blanks. There are 4,230 season ticket holders for the Cougars football games. This is 56 2/5% of the seating capacity at the stadium. What is the seating capacity? So we're looking for the whole amount X. And the part, which is 56 2/5%, is 4,230. So we're going to change 56 2/5. Easiest thing would make it a decimal right now and then slide it over to. So it's 0.564. 2/5 is 0.4. Slide it over 2. Equals 4,230. So divide both sides by 0.564. So 4230 divided by 0.564, we get 7,500 seats. That was the total amount of seats in the stadium. And the last one, 16 blank percent of the whole amount equals the part. In last year's freshman class election, one candidate received 36 votes. This represents 45% of the total class vote. So 36 is the part, and it's 45% of the whole amount. Change 45% to a decimal. 0.45 of times X equals 36. Divide both sides by 0.45. And we get 80. So the entire class vote was 80. That concludes the evens. Be sure you check the back of the book for the answers to the odds.